I just want to pray that what I say is going to be pleasing to God, beneficial to us, that I don't forget anything, that is complete, and that the technology works. And that's up to Bill. No pressure. So welcome. Welcome to Genesis 1, verse 1, take 2. Now that we're going to have the technology here. This is not something from the Bible. This is about the Bible. And with an expert in the back row, I feel a little intimidated. Anyway. One of the reasons I said that I thought that Genesis 1:1 was the most important verse in the Bible is because that if people really believed this verse and understood it properly, I think the rest of the Bible would be very simple. And that churches would be full if people really understood the meaning behind some of these verses. So this is the English verse. Can we turn the light sound just a bit? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. It's interesting that if you go to Bible Hub on the television, on the internet.
No, I heard you guys music.
I can't record you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, both ways, I guess.
Can't win either way.
No, can't win, no. If you go to Bible Hub on the internet, there are at least 33 different translations of the Bible. Most of them are the same in many ways. But if you look at the one just for this verse, some have, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Some have, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, God created by forming from nothing the heavens and the earth. There's one that says, at the beginning of time, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God's preparing the heavens and the earth. It's interesting that there are 33 roughly different versions, different translations of the Bible. And there are about 33,000 different variations of churches, different denominations in the Protestant realm. But even if you look at this one, this is the English. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There are two things one should note about this. First of all, it says that there was a beginning. And this was written by a Hebrew, basically a Hebrew priest or Hebrew scribe, about 2,800 years before Christ's birth. And he said, in the beginning. It was only in the last 200 or 300 years that science accepted the fact that there was a beginning to the universe. But this was written thousands of years before that. In addition, he said, God created, not the gods created. It was monotheistic. It was one God. Even though in the Hebrew it's in a plural form. So even from this we can take these things that some people don't emphasize enough, that there was a beginning and that it was God that created the heavens and the earth. But he didn't write it in English. This was written for the first time in Hebrew. So the next slide shows the Hebrew alphabet. Now there's two things about Hebrew that we should look at. First of all, in English, we read from left to right. Hebrew is written from right to left, and read from right to left. And some people say the reason for this is that if you look at a compass, north is always to the top, south is to the bottom, east is to the right. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So the Hebrew felt it should read from the right to the left. So this is part of the reason, at least, why Hebrew is written and read this way. Every number, every letter, also has a number with it. Every letter is a number. Because when this was written down, there were no numbers. There were no numerals like we have them. The numerical system that we use was only developed in 600 AD in India. So up until that time, the letters were also used for numbers. The same way in Latin, we still have the Roman numerals. And they're not really numbers, they're letters written in place of numbers. So this is the same idea. So every letter is a number as well. So, starting to the right, the first number is 1, the second letter is number 2, and keep that in mind because it's important for later. Every number goes up, as you can see. Let's see the next one. The next one has the names written down on it as well, because every letter has a name. And the first letter is called the alpha. The second is called the bet. And if you haven't figured it out already, this is where we get our name, the alphabet, from those 2 letters. So this is the alphabet in Hebrew, and the alphabet name in English comes from those 2 letters. This is the tav. This is the last letter. It's considered compatible to our Z. This is the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet, also important for later. Next one. So this is the Hebrew for Genesis 1:1. And it starts on the right. Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim vet Havnes. My pronunciation is probably going to kill some Hebrew people, but anyway. This is really what it is. And this little letter here, called et, is something which we're going to look at very carefully, because if you look at this is in the beginning, created God, there's nothing there. See the next one for a minute? This is the same thing. In the beginning, created God, nothing, the heavens and the earth. We don't translate that little letter, that little 2-letter word in English. But it is, as you see from here, there are 7 words in Hebrew, where there are 10 in English. And there are 7 candlesticks in the menorah of the Jewish people, with the middle candlestick right over this word. Okay. Now, 7 in the Bible is considered a number of perfection. God created the earth in 7 days. There are, in the book of Revelation, there are 7 golden candlesticks, there are 7 stars, there are 7 churches, there are 7 vials, 7 trumpets, there are 7 curses on the earth. There's 7 issues as a number of completion throughout the Bible, and this started right from this first verse in Hebrew. There are 7 words. There were people who've done studies in this, and one was a person named Ivan Palin, who examined this Hebrew text very carefully. And the number of 7s that came up in this was amazing. This was reported by in another book. But I want to just read the number of 7s. The listing of the phenomenal features of 7s found in Genesis 1. The number of Hebrew words is 7. The number of letters equals 28. 28 divided by 4 is 7. The first 3 Hebrew words translated, "In the beginning God created," contain 14 letters. 14 divided by 2 is 7. The last 4 Hebrew words, the heavens and the earth, have 14 letters. 14 divided by 2 is 7. The 4th and 5th words have 7 letters. The 6th and seventh words have 7 letters. The 3 key words, God, heaven, and earth, have 14 letters. 14 divided by 2 is 7. The number of letters in the 4 remaining words is also 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. The shortest word in the verse is a middle word with 7 letters. The numeric value of the first, middle, and last letters is 133. 133 divided by 19 equals 7. The numeric value of the first and last letters of all 7 words is 1393 divided by 199 equals 7. And 7 is the 4th prime number. All this comes from this verse. And people have tried to sort of duplicate this in other ways, but they can't do it. More so, this same pattern is found in other words and verses in the Bible. For instance, in John, the numbers go down to 1, 13 and 1, or 3 and 1, 13 and 1, and 133 and 1, if you go look at that verse. So this is all in the first verse of Genesis from this. Next slide. Now, this was first apparently spoken verbally, but it was written in a cursory form by what we see there. But before that, there was a pictograph form of Hebrew. So how old that is, I don't know. But every letter was formed by a pictograph, same as Egyptian hieroglyphics. And every letter has a pictogram under it. So before this cursory letter form was written, we have these pictograms. And it shows different meanings behind each one. Can we see the next one, please? So, what you did see now is the small verse, the small word in the middle of Genesis 1:1. It's made of 2 letters. The first letter and the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The Aleph and the Tav. If you were in Greek, this would be Alpha and Omega. Jesus said, I am the Alpha and the Omega. Because he was in the New Testament, this is where the Revelation was written. Also, this is considered to be power, a leader, or as some person put it, a creator. There's no question what that is. In the very first verse of Genesis. The Alpha and the Omega. The cradle, or the leadership to the cross. See, people, I don't think people understand this, because this is so empowering if you listen to what you're thinking of and what people are saying. This is the Bible, just in the first verse. And this was written long before Christ ever came on earth. Here's the next one. This is the first word in the Bible, letter sheet. The first letter is the second, or the first part of this is the second letter, which is the number 2. And the Hebrews say this is there because God made everything in a duality in this earth. He made the sun and the moon. He made dark and light. He made cold and heat. He made good and evil. He made man and woman. 2 genders, not a dozen. Everything is in a duality. And this is in the very first letter of the very first word in the Hebrew Bible. And if you go through this, there is really a house. This is what this is referring to, sort of a house. And the head of the house, in a cradle, comes out of the house to his death. Okay. So this is all in the first verse, on the first verse of Genesis. I really think people don't understand these things because this is why they don't believe the Bible. The Bible is a series of stories which some people think were just made up. We're just comprised and really have no basis in fact. But almost every verse in the Bible has something like this in it. And like I said, you can study the Bible for eons and never come up with everything in it. In Matthew, it says, we are not to change one jot or tittle of the law. And the law is really God's word. And this is the reason why we're not to change anything in God's word, because it's so precise. If we knew the precision of the original, we wouldn't have 40 or 50 different translations trying to explain it. It explains itself. It's all right there. So if we accept that and do it, and not change things, and not try to translate things into different forms, we'd probably be much better off just accepting what we already have. The problem is we don't understand Hebrew or Greek. This is, people who go to divinity school probably do, but the rest of us just don't. In Isaiah, it said that that I am God. There is none like me. I know the end from the beginning. The end from the beginning. This is probably a reference to Genesis 1:1, because these people understood these. It was written in their language. It was written in a form they could understand, in a form they would not change. Why the scribes were so careful to copy everything down precisely, because every jot and tittle, every little mark in Hebrew is a meaning. And if we would only listen to that and accept that, then we would probably have a much better understanding of what the Bible really means. And if we really accepted what the Bible really means, then I would think the churches would be full. People don't believe it anymore because it's been changed and altered in many different translations and ways. So this is only part of one section, of one verse of the Bible. All this is in there. And that little word which the Jewish people don't use, and which we don't translate. Can we go back for a minute? Can we go back a couple slides? Yeah. That one little word that the Jewish people don't use and which we don't use, because it's not in our translation, talks right about Christ right there. Wow. I am the beginning and the end. The Aleph and the Tav, the Alpha and the Omega. The beginning, no, the end from the beginning is right there. That is the end. It will be the end of civilization in the first verse of Genesis. And that's it.
Interesting.